And just to recap these whole things, so you guys are talking about FX, we've talked about inflation, we've talked about climate change now we've moved to the world of subsidy removal. All of those things are summing up to just one thing, is our economic growth rate. I've not seen Portfolio's reports, but I'm trusting with all my heart that Philip has seen it. So Philip, let's recap this segment with what our economic growth rate looks like. If you have insight into what our projections will be for Q1, Q2 2022, I think it would be a good way to wrap this up. And then Tulu and Deba, I'd like you to talk to us about, now we've seen what the growth rate is. How does that translate at a granular level as an individual? How does that really, really affect me? How does that affect my spending power? How does that affect how I should approach my investments and my savings? So Philip, let's start with you.
Okay, thanks a lot. So it's the third quarter growth rate we have now. And of course, we have the estimate of what the central bank is expecting for 2022. So the recent quarter, the growth rate was just 4.03%, which is a slowdown from the second quarter when it was 5.01%. Now you remember that last year, Nigeria got into a recession in the second quarter.
Yeah.
With a negative growth rate of 6.01%, and then followed by another, month. The third quarter also, there was, I think, a slightly higher than 3% negative growth rates. So those two consecutive quarters, of course, got Nigeria into recession. But by the last quarter, there was a marginal growth rate of 0.11%. And in the first quarter, then you had 0.51% in the first quarter of this year. So the second quarter growth rate was actually higher at 5.01%. And, of course, that has to be sustained for there to be any meaningful growth. Now it's back to 4.03%. And if you do even the cumulative growth rates, the growth rate for the last 4 quarters, where there has been positive growth, compared to the two quarters where there was negative growth rate, you see that even the growth rate is not as high as what happened during those 2 months, those 2 quarters. So what does that mean? So Nigeria is still in the recovery period, as far as I'm concerned. So which means that we are not even back to pre-pandemic levels yet. And which is, the pre-pandemic level wasn't good enough. So now that we are now even not as, we are not even back to that level yet, it gives, I think, some sort of concern as to what is really happening. And then the outlook for 2022 by the CBN shows, I think, just a little higher than 3% growth rate. That's their expectation. So they expect it to actually be worse than, probably on a general note, it probably might be slightly higher than this year when we look at the 4 quarters as a whole, but it's just around 3% that they're looking at in 2022. Which I think should be a source of concern for anybody. Just to break it down, of course, the GDP measures, the economic production in total production in an economy, and gives a general outlook of how the economy is performing. And at that rate, I don't think we are anywhere near good enough. I think it's poor, and I think the outlook does not look promising as well, given the data released so far. So that's where we are.